Welcome to Mountains Made Low, where we help our listeners to encounter the love of God and live well in the modern world. I am Dennis Mueller.
And I'm Christine Reagan.
And so today, just to kind of preface as we enter into this episode, you reached out to me the other day and said half your household is down for the count with the flu. And
if this sounds like a similar story, it should, because the
right,
same
because
thing
the same thing
happened
happened
last year.
Right around the same time too. I think it was the only out of 102 episodes, it was the only time that I had to do a solo episode. Yeah.
So I had like a lot of flashbacks of last year. And so we tried to get ahead of it. And we're doing this remotely for the very first time.
Yeah. So if the audio is a little bit wonky and everything, we'll try to do the best that we can to kind of clear it up for you. But we're actually kind of doing this recording over a Zoom, which means I don't have a microphone to work with, neither does Christine, but we're trying to do our best to get the best audio out of this. But yeah, Christine you were nice enough to offer me the opportunity. You reached out to me and you said, "Do you want to get together live?" And I said, "Absolutely not," because I'm flying
Which
out
I
to
figured
LA.
you were going to say. I did expect that.
No, and normally I would be okay with that. I wouldn't mind so much, but having to fly out to LA for a conference next week, there's no way that I'm going to get the flu 2 days before that I have to scrap all that.
Well, if you do, it's not going to be on me. That's
not because
that's what I told myself. And I would like the people to know that I may not be considerate of your time, but I am considerate of your health. So,
yes,
and I do that partially because of your age. So I have to be. Otherwise, we're both out of a job. So at least this job among our many other jobs. So the good news is that this is a coffee talk Reddit kind of an episode. So of all the things to do kind of on the fly and remotely, this is probably the content that we should do it with. So what are we starting with today? I think I did pull them all from either the Catholicism subreddit or just Catholic subreddit. Yeah. And the cool thing is that these were all more recent postings from people. So I didn't have to dig that far. And I thought we found a couple good ones. So how about you can pick 1, 2, 3.
Well, let's go with that second question that we have there. And the question is, I'm an atheist, but I always take my time to visit churches as almost everything about them amazes me. However, I have come to notice that the Catholic churches is always so flashy with loads of painting, gold details, and sculptures compared to the more simplistic design of Protestantism. Why is that?
Do you think Protestant churches are simplistic in their design with their like NBA style lighting and their stage presence and I'm thinking of megachurch.
Right. Megachurch maybe, but I think some of your more mainline churches, you go walk into a Methodist church, you walk into a Presbyterian church, it's a little bit more on the plain side. Not a lot of embellishments in those. And the reason why there's not a lot of embellishments is because their primary focus is on the Word of God.
Well, also their primary focus is that they were a reaction to, like all of Protestantism is a reaction to Catholicism. So why they don't even want to look like a Catholic church.
So the question really is kind of hearkening on to why the flashiness behind what's in the Catholic Church. Because you have the beauty of stained glass windows. There's lots of painting and artwork. There's lots of statuary in the church. The altars tend to be very, very ornate, marble carvings or wood carvings. So there is a lot of gold, and really, to be honest with you, here in the United States, it's brass, right?
It's brass.
It's brass. Well, there's
just
a lot
like
of brass.
My earrings. There's nothing gold about these. This is I'm sure this is brass and will turn my skin green in no time at all. But yeah.
So, but it does look gold.
Right. But it seems I think that people who tend to notice this first, they look at the beauty and they think it's excessive. They find it to be opulent in a negative sense. And I want to ask them, well, why does that bother you? What is not okay about that? Because I think they think that the church should just sell off all of its wealth. And I don't think that the church should do that. And I don't think Jesus promoted that either. What are your thoughts before I say other things?
Well, to be honest with you, when we take a look at human nature and the creativity of the human person, in being able to do things artistically. I mean, you take a look at like somebody like a Michelangelo who's carving like David and all these and the Pieta, like how just to be able to form that out of a piece of marble is it's beyond imaginable. I mean, that's what an incredible human achievement. Have the talent and the skill to be able to vision that and then to bring it to life from a slab of marble.
Right.
So the beauty of including that type of artwork and things into the church's understanding is really that when we do those things, this is one of the ways that we glorify God, right? We're glorifying God through our human nature. What does it mean to glorify God? It really means to reveal God's presence, to make God's presence known. And so, just as we can turn around and be outside, like all these people who are like, oh, I want to be outside, that's my church, the beauty of creation and the trees and nature and the sky and all these wonderful things, the ocean. That's all great because God is revealing himself to you through the beauty of that encounter with creation. But it's the same thing when it comes to the work of the human person, whether it's the carved statues or marble, whether it's the artistic work and the hand painting of a stained glass window or some other type of portrait or artwork that's on display in the church. Things are ornate because really, when you look at our Jewish history and tradition, the first fruits, we want to give the very best of what we have back to God first before we do anything else.
Yeah.
And so in the Catholic Church, because of that, the Jewish roots that we have, that mentality is really in there in how we worship, but it's also there in how we adorn our churches, right? We want to give God our very best. It's not about opulence. It's not about wealth. It's really directed towards love, honor, devotion of God.
Beauty in the church is important. And, I forget who said it. Maybe it was Chesterton. I think it was Chesterton. He said that cathedrals should look like heaven on earth. That's the
Yeah.
point because of how transcendent it all is and how good that is for the human person. The beauty that our churches possess, and particularly the big cathedrals, there is a time and a place for that in our Universal Catholic Church because our churches should reflect the glory, the splendor of God. It should reflect beauty and truth that are the treasures of our church. That should be
Yeah.
reflected in our places of worship. And
Yeah.
so I think about the temple in the Old Testament. I mean, the temple was a beautiful place because they were giving the best of what they had to God first, all for the communication of the divine, right? Because
Mhm.
the temple transmitted, it was the place where God dwelled. Well, the churches today are transmitting the divine to the human person, right? Something that we desperately need to be reminded of all the time. The fact that what we're actually experiencing is not just the things that are not just the things that we see. We need this. And so I think the church needs to communicate, it needs to have that both end approach
Yeah.
to the beauty of the church. And I think about it in the person of Jesus. So Jesus is both fully human and fully divine. And so I think it's wonderful when churches can express that. But what do I think is probably the most beautiful cathedral? The Cologne Cathedral. I mean,
Mm.
the Cologne one, I did that for you because of your German. But I mean, it's
Thank
the
you.
most transcendent place that I can imagine. And then you have places like Mother Teresa's place in Calcutta. And so one communicates maybe the more human element of the incarnation, and then the other communicates the divinity of Christ himself. We need both.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's making the world poor. This is not a new critique of the church, that the church just sell off all of its wealth. We see it in the story of Mary of Bethany when she anoints Jesus's feet. And
Sure.
some of the apostles are like, what are you doing? Or that should be sold and the money should be given to the poor. And he says, let her do it. She needs to do it. You need to see her do it. There is a time and a place for that. And so I don't think that the wealth, and what I mean by the wealth, I mean the beauty that the church has. I don't think that's not taking food off of people's tables. It's
Yeah.
not. We need the beauty of the church communicates the transcendent splendor, glory, majesty of God. He deserves it, and it's good for us to give that to him.
Yeah.
And we can perform all of the merciful work that the church is responsible to offer as we give God his due because he is God.
And not only is Cologne one of the places for the most beautiful cathedrals, but it is also the origin of one of the best German beers, the Kolsch.
Oh, but the Kolsch, is that where it's
Yeah,
from?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
oh,
It
very
has its
cool.
origin in Cologne. So incredible, great. One of the best beers out there. To piggyback on that a little bit, I would also say that for me, like when I walk into, say, a cathedral church, or maybe one of the older Catholic churches that, like down here in Philadelphia, you walk into like maybe a St. John the Baptist church, or one of the older ones that have been around since the 1800s, like Nativity, BBM down there in Lehigh. You walk into those church
Oh,
because they're so they just draw you right away into awe, and you just for me it puts me into a mood like I've just stepped out of the reality of the world and into someplace different, and it
it's a
actually
sacred
draws.
space. It's
It's a
supposed to
yeah,
be.
you recognize that interiorly. I recognize that this is a sacred space, and it draws me right into prayer. Now, that's not to say that that can't happen. Walking into like a church that is very plain and doesn't have all of those things, but there is something to be said when you walk into some of these Catholic churches, and the beauty just draws you into God. Because again, what is beauty? Beauty is one of those transcendental desires that's written
Hmm.
on the human heart, right? And so when you see those beauty, even though it's not perfect beauty by any means, it still draws us right into God, who is perfect beauty himself.
Yeah.
So there is a wisdom behind all of this. I think the biggest criticism that I hear is especially with the Vatican, because the Vatican has its own museum. There's so much artwork that's connected to the Vatican, in St. Peter's, that when people see that, some people are in awe, of that,
Mhm.
and just again, just drawn into the glory and the beauty and the mystery of God. Others are like, what a waste. The Catholic Church is so hypocritical. They should be selling all this stuff and giving it to the poor. The Catholic Church is the largest contributor in the world to social needs, to social needs. There
Like
is
Catholic relief services. Yeah.
no, yeah, there's no other agency on the planet. There's no other government on the planet that is doing more than the Catholic Church is for social.
Some people would say, well, if they sold all that stuff in those museums, then we could contribute even more. And
Yeah,
to that, I would say it also houses when you have these things that generation upon generation can witness to and understand and kind of experience the past history and tradition of the church, that's a really valuable experience. And so what you're
yeah,
selling off is often the tradition of the church
yeah.
manifested in the history of the world. I wouldn't be so quick to do that.
Right.
Um,
Because we know that tradition is very, very important. It's the
right.
flip side. You have sacred tradition, you have sacred scripture.
Yeah.
And so some of this stuff is connected, with the tradition, the beliefs, the practice of our faith. And so we don't want to be quick to kind of throw out our
Sure.
history
And
with
even
all
just
that.
tradition with a small t, like tradition with a
Yeah,
big T and tradition with a
sure.
small t. I think
Sure.
it's really important. There are precious things that in the present remind the church of her past and draw her to her future. And again, I don't think any of this, and this is proven, this is not just me talking, this is not the reason why people are hungry in the world. There's more than enough food. There's more than enough money to take care of everybody in the world.
Sure.
It's not the church that is dropping the ball in regard to its beautiful churches.
Right.
All right. This is again from the Catholic subreddit. This person writes, a few months ago, I started looking into Catholicism basically to prove a friend wrong. I always laugh at these. Uh, they invited me to go with them, and I came from a mega church background, so I figured I already knew what the Catholic Church was about. But once I actually started reading, it hit me way harder than I expected. The Eucharist, the whole question of authority, and St. Ignatius of Antioch, especially. I don't know how to explain it, but that stuff grabbed me. The more I dug, the more I felt like the early church lined up with Catholicism way more than anything I grew up hearing. It honestly shocked me. Now I'm an OCIA and spend stupid amounts of time, it's my favorite phrase, stupid amounts of time researching because I can't get enough of it. And I'm at this point where I'm actually confused how everyone isn't Catholic. You and me both, buddy. I don't know who you are, but you and me both. The history and the theology feel so solid. The Eucharist especially. I can't wait until I'm able to receive it. They continue. The tough part is how people around me react. I
Mm.
haven't argued with anyone or tried to debate them, but the second people hear I'm converting, they judge me or act weird. It annoys me because I honestly want to share what I found and not shove anything on anyone. It matters to me and it changed me, and I hate feeling like I have to keep quiet around people who used to know me best. I'm trying to stay excited about what I found while dealing with everyone assuming the worst the moment they hear Catholic. It's a weird spot to be in.
Yeah.
Welcome to the club. Okay. Uh, Rejection is hard. And I think that this person there is a lot of anti-Catholic sentiment that still exists in the world.
Yeah.
People are not happy, and I think this is a very general statement outside of faith too. I don't think people are always happy when somebody chooses to do something different. It makes them uncomfortable because for some reason they see it as a judgment on how they're living their life. Maybe it comes from a lack of confidence, insecurity, maybe it's confusion that they're experiencing on their end. You have, here the word goes again, you have triggered something in them that maybe they didn't even know was there, and now you are receiving the brunt of
Sure.
it. So I think that's true in many circumstances. I'll defer to you. I have more to
And
say, but go
Jesus
ahead.
makes it very, very clear in the Gospels that his followers will be hated because of him. And I think that sentiment really does apply here. In the Catholic Church's view, the Catholic Church sees all of our Protestant brothers and sisters as being in communion with the church, but not in full communion with the church,
Mhm.
right? So we're in communion through the church through our shared baptism and some of the other things that we believe, like we all believe in the Trinity. We all believe in Christ Jesus being the Son of God. We believe in baptism is necessary for salvation. Grace is necessary for salvation. We all believe in the sacred scriptures, but there are different things that occur in many different Protestant churches where they stray from Catholic Church teachings. Okay. And we also have to remember that, even though the Reformation happened, 500 years ago, this is still relatively new
Yeah.
in our history, right?
Yeah.
So for 1,500 years of the existence of the church, we were one, we were unified. There was only the church. It wasn't even referred to as the Catholic, it was
Oh,
the church.
you know what I just remembered? Have you ever seen the movie Gangs of New York?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a line in Gangs of New York when Daniel Day-Lewis's character, do you remember him?
Yeah.
It's been a really long time. And he's talking about the Catholics. And he said if I could, I'd shoot every one of them before they got off the boat. It's
Yeah.
a famous line in Gangs of New York. And that show, now, of course, that's from a particular early American time period, but that wasn't that long ago either. And that really
Right.
showed the hostility between Catholics and Protestants. Of course, we've come a long way, but that just popped into my head. That it's a great line, but it also
But
points to a deep historical truth.
well, look at the Know Nothing era right here in the city of Philadelphia,
Yeah.
within our own archdiocese, where, churches were being burnt down by our Protestant brothers and sisters
Yeah.
because of the hatred. And again, I think
And
the
Catholics
hatred.
haven't always behaved properly
No,
either. I'm
no,
sure
no,
Catholics
no.
have
I
done,
agree.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, and it's because there's only so many times when you could be hated and persecuted before somebody finally gets their back up and begins to react, to all those things. And that's not justification of it at all. But I think for this particular individual, I mean, I can feel for him, especially coming from the megachurch, because it's more so in those megachurches where there's this really strong anti-Catholic sentiment. And so if this is the background that he's coming from, and this is the background where his connections are, his friends are, maybe even his family are, they might be having a hard time for how he could turn, right?
Sure.
In a sense, and the beauty of that. But what he's talking about here, about the Eucharist, the question of authority, Ignatius of Antioch, and how he is doing that deep dive into the church,
The early church. I mean,
the
Ignatius of
early
Antioch is
church,
second century.
right?
So,
The early church. There's no possible way that you can, if you avail yourself to it, there's no possible way that you can defend some of the Protestant positions.
Mhm.
And I have known many Protestants, former Protestants, who have come to the church following that same path. So again, I don't think it's anything to worry about, but I also think this individual has a very good sense because he's not trying to proselytize anybody else. He's on his own journey for right now. He's not trying to debate them. He's not trying to argue with anybody. He's just sharing, if asked, that this is where I'm at, and
Right.
this is what I found, and this is why I feel the need to do all this stuff. And I would just encourage him or anybody else who might be kind of going through this, to maintain that excitement, right? And it might be that you need to make more connections with
Mhm.
the local Catholic community
Yeah.
as you not only find your way home, but establish yourself in a new home with regards to your faith. It's important for you to begin to make connections locally. And the OCIA, I mean, you read that in the thing, but that's for those who are listening who might not know what that is. That's the updated language that the church uses for RCIA, which used to stand for Rite of Christian Initiation of Adults. OCIA stands for the Order of Christian Initiation for Adults. And that really it's a book, first off. I mean, Father Gill would be the first one to say it's not a program, it's a book, right? It's a book.
It's a
It's the
ritual text, Dennis.
it's a
It's a ritual
ritual text.
text.
Yes, it's a ritual text. It's a ritual text that the church uses to guide the church, to guide parishes, to guide ministers and whatnot into how to catechize and receive the unbaptized into the church and those Protestant brothers and sisters who are seeking full communion with the church. Right? They're already baptized. We're already one through baptism, but now they want to come into full communion with the church with the reception of Eucharist and confirmation and become Catholic. So
Yeah.
that the OCIA is really the process through which that unfolds, and the order, kind of unfolds how that all happens through the various rituals of acceptance and the call to continuing conversion, the rite of election. There's all these different things, stages that people go through. There's four periods of the catechumenate that these
Hmm.
individuals traverse through.
If I could interject too, I would remember the quote, the Christian life uh, has not been tried and found wanting. It's been tried and found difficult. You're, this is, and so you're talking about maintaining that
Who
excitement.
is that? C.S. Lewis?
It's C.S. Lewis or it's Chesterton because
Yeah, I know it's one of the two. Yeah,
yeah, but it's a very famous quote. And so I would just tell this individual and anybody who might be in a similar situation of, yeah, the Christian life has its challenges and we should expect them and we have to equip ourselves to be able to handle them in a way that doesn't leave us kind of being like, gosh, this is such a weird spot to be in, which is what the original author says. Yeah, but you exist in the truth. The actual spot that you're in is that you know the truth and you're excited about the truth and you want to share the truth.
yeah,
That's beautiful and it's going to be necessary, but the truth is naturally going to have, because of what Jesus experienced, we know this from his own life, you're going to have people are going to be opposed to the truth. And that means that they're going to be opposed to you, unfortunately, as well. And so telling them that they need to find a Catholic community to sustain them, to lean on them for support, I found that very helpful in my own young adult experience. I had like my college friends, and then I had my young adult Catholic community friends. And some of them are still some of my best friends to this day. And you need that understanding, you need that shared discipleship and companionship to live the Christian life. And so you gotta find other people to lean on when unfortunately other people disappoint you. But it's going to happen, and we need to expect it to happen.
yeah.
But it
And
doesn't mean
again,
you
when
gotta
he
change course.
no, but when he says, I found while dealing with everyone, assuming the worst the moment that they hear Catholic, the people that know this individual know the type of person he is. And so I would even say that works a little bit to his advantage because knowing him, can kind of blur some of the generalizations that people have about Catholics in general. It's like you hear it all the time, Catholics are going to hell, and the Pope's the Antichrist, and it's not real, it's not a real church,
We're a
all of
cult.
these
I hear
things.
we're a
Or
cult. We
it's a
have
cult.
idols. Yeah.
Sure. But when they see somebody who they know and who's normal, and all of a sudden they're getting excited about the Catholic Church and what it's doing and everything, maybe what that can do is begin to spark some curiosity on their part. Because out of their knowledge, their knowledge of this individual, and sometimes their love for this individual, if they're family and everything, it might be the impetus for them to begin to maybe accompany this individual on the journey. Of course, the flip side of that is true. Families have written off family members when they become Catholic and they've switched. Again, Jesus warns that those type of things can happen as well.
Fear of that loss of relationship, the devil can use that to tempt you away from the truth that you've received.
Sure.
And so to just be aware of that the devil will capitalize on people acting weird around you and judging you and giving you a poor experience. Maybe I should just go back to the life that I was living. That's a temptation. That's a temptation.
And what he's trying to do is he's just trying to undermine the progress that you're making.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is what we tell people in OCIA all the time. Like, expect it. Don't be surprised when all of a sudden maybe you feel as though your resolve has been weakened, your faith feels weaker this week than it did last week, and you're struggling with all sorts of things. That's frankly why we do the scrutinies. Now we're getting into some more technical RCIA things, but the closer you get to the sacraments, this guy can't wait to receive Holy Communion. The closer you get to the sacraments, the more the devil is going to be working against you being initiated into the body of Christ like that. So. So the line from Gangs of New York, I want to get it right. The line, this is Bill the Butcher, is who he plays in Gangs of New York. Bill the Butcher doesn't like the Irish Catholics, coming into America, and says, if I had the guns, I'd shoot each and every one of them before they set foot on American soil. That's what he says.
There you go.
And that's the Catholics, folks.
And yeah. So.
All right.
So I think the final question that we're going to look at today is this. Okay. And again, this is coming from the Catholic Reddit. I, Catholic, have been dating a wonderful woman who's Protestant for a while now. Things are going great, but we've recently gotten into the deeper conversation about what faith would look like in marriage, and especially how we'd raise kids. At first, I said something like, it's fine, the kids can decide later to go to both churches. As long as they grow up close to God, that's what matters. But lately, I've been reading more about what the Catholic Church actually teaches on this. I learned that Catholics who marry non-Catholics are supposed to promise to do everything they can to raise the kids Catholic. And now I'm realizing that this might be more complicated than I thought. She's really strong in her own faith, and I respect that. I don't want to disrespect her or turn this into a control issue. But at the same time, I want to stay faithful to what my church asks of me. Has anyone gone through something similar?
I didn't realize that all three questions touch on the Protestant, like a Catholic Protestant dynamic. I did not realize that at all.
Yeah. But I think that this is a good question. And again, the individuals that have been asking these questions, bully for you guys, because it shows that
big
you
ones,
really.
Yeah,
I mean, these are big life questions, and they really are taking the time to discern, what is best and how to move forward and how to navigate some of these difficult situations that they find in. So,
especially in marriage, because once you're married, you're married. Think about it now.
Yeah.
Number one, can a Catholic marry a non-Catholic? Yes, which would be a Christian. Absolutely. Can a Catholic marry a non-Christian? Yes. So theoretically, a Catholic can marry nearly anybody that they want to marry. Okay. So there's a way for this to happen. There are times in which that marriage, it's always a valid bond. There are times in which it may be a sacrament, it may not be, right? Only Christians can engage in sacraments and receive sanctifying grace of a sacrament. But yeah, I mean, anybody can get married within the law of the Catholic Church for the most part. Okay. And what I mean by the most part is that 2 women cannot, 2 men cannot. I think the real question is, this person doesn't sound sure that they want to do this. And they're starting to realize that this decision to marry somebody who does not share my faith in the fullness, the fullness of my faith, because they have a Christian bond, but they don't have a Catholic bond necessarily. And they're seeing where they may run into obstacles later on down the road. And so I would applaud them for seeing these things maybe before they happen and to
Mhm.
be second guessing these things. Can you marry somebody? Of course. And do I think Catholics and non-Catholics can they have loving, beautiful marriages? Yes. I can only say for myself, I would not have wanted to marry a non-Catholic. And I have my own reasons for that, which we can get into.
Sure.
But what do you think? I think a shared spirituality, a shared worldview, a
Right.
shared value system is absolutely crucial for a marriage and for the rearing of children. I really, really do. To say that, I'm not saying it's the only way that you can have a successful marriage and family life, but I think it is the most ideal of circumstances. What do you think?
It certainly makes things easier to navigate, but it's not completely necessary. I mean, you can navigate these things
Yeah.
without both parties being Catholic, but conversation here is the key. And just for some quick clarification too with the marriage thing, for Catholics to be married validly, it has to be to a baptized person, and it has to be in the presence of a priest or deacon, okay, or bishop, right? It has to be an ordained member of the church.
Sure.
So if you are marrying somebody who is not Catholic, um, and especially if you're going to do that outside of the Catholic Church, like maybe get married in her church, you would need proper dispensation from the bishop, which is very easy to get, right? It's very easy. It's just you go to parish priest and just say, this is what's happening, and he'll work with you to get that dispensation. Dispensation is just a letter of permission stating that it's okay for you to dispense from the normal form of marriage in the Catholic Church and the
Hmm.
obligations you have by virtue of your Catholic baptism to be married within the church. So I would just encourage
Hmm.
make sure that you go through that, because if you're the type of person who's concerned about the question of bringing up your kids Catholic, well, let's make sure that we get the entire formula right. And
Right.
so if you're going to
Sure.
end up getting married outside the church, make sure that you get that proper dispensation. But with regards to the questions, yeah, you really need to sit down and have a very deep conversation. And it sounds like they're doing that. They've recently gotten into deeper conversations about faith would look like in marriage. And so I think naturally that conversation is probably revolving around well, whose church are we going to go to?
Right.
Right? How are we going to live this out? I would also exercise some caution there with regards to the Catholic person, because it's not like we're just going to alternate every other week, because as a baptized Catholic, you have an obligation to keep holy the Sabbath day by attending Mass. So what you want to do is make sure that you're not compromising there, because you still have an obligation to attend Mass on Sunday. And so if I'm willingly making a deliberate choice to say, well, I'm not going to go to Mass this week and I'm going to go to her church, you have to be very, very careful, because, again, missing Mass is grave matter. And if you knowingly and willfully choose to do that, you could be in a state of mortal sin. And so, you don't want to
It's
be
we're
kind of,
not all the same. Like that's the thing. As many things as all Christians have in common, the truths of our faith, they're not interchangeable. We
yeah,
believe that the Catholic Church has the absolute fullness of the person of Jesus, the sacramental life, his body, his blood, his soul, his divinity. You can't get that anywhere else, and you can't alternate in and out of it. To live that way and then communicate that to your children, where you can alternate in and out, I just think that's a poor example. That's not how a Catholic is meant to live and raise a family.
yeah.
Do you think there's a level of intimacy that spouses would not have if they didn't share the same faith?
Well, there could be. The potential is certainly there. if I'm not going to mass with my spouse, right? I'm just going by myself because, like, if this was me, I wouldn't be missing mass on Sunday, which means that I would be going to my church, or my wife would be either be accompanying me by default because she wants to get together and I'm not compromising on this, or she's going to her church, because she doesn't want to compromise, and now we're not together, so that's going to affect our intimacy. There's certain things that we would normally do as part of our Catholic practice and devotion that our spouse might not want to participate in, like the praying of the Rosary or Divine Mercy Chaplet, or maybe going to a prayer service, Stations of the Cross, things like that. And so it could become problematic. And when you enter into a marriage, the goal is to share of yourself completely with your spouse. And so if you're kind of stepping off into this arena where your faith has been kind of, I don't want to say compartmentalized, but it's been divided between the two of you. You're doing your thing, she's doing her thing, and you're not really taking the time to even make an attempt to intermingle all that stuff, because sometimes you can't, then it's certainly going to affect your ability to give of yourself completely.
Yeah, I heard a priest say this. I forget who it was, but I want somebody who does not just tolerate my faith. I want somebody who loves my faith
Yeah,
and shares in it fully with me. I mean, I can't tell you how many times in marriage Sean and I have prayed very Catholic prayers together. We've laid hands on each other. We speak
sure.
a very similar spiritual language, and how important that's been for our love, our relationship, our marriage, the example that we're trying to set forth to our kids. We have the
Yeah,
same we have the same goal in mind ultimately. Now, you could say that a Catholic and a Christian would have the same goal in mind. Um, but how we would get being heaven, but how we would get there might be different.
sure.
I marriage is about two spouses spending their their entire earthly lives together trying to get each other to heaven, and you want to drag your kids in along with you.
Right.
Um, I think it's most ideal if we are of one mind and one faith about that, and we're nourished by the sacraments of the church as we strive to do that. I'm not saying it can't happen a different way. I'm not saying that God can't be using the Catholic party as an instrument to, because frequently spouses or spouses to be will convert to Catholicism in order to have that kind of evenly yoked, if you want to borrow a biblical phrase, home. And that's then in those situations, God was using you relationally as an instrument to bring somebody else into the fullness of the
Sure.
church. What I am thinking, though, is that this person was talking about a Catholic and a Protestant. I would also say it's really important for two Catholics to be evenly yoked at home. And what I mean by that is that you both practice the faith and that you're not
Yeah,
just Catholic and one isn't a practicing Catholic and the other one is Catholic in name only.
right.
And for how many people is that the case? So I
Yeah,
just think you need to really discern what it is, how God's using you, what he's really calling you to.
yeah. I mean, there's certainly some challenges that are present in that type of a situation with a possible marriage, than if it were just two Catholics. Again, the level of intensity of complication increases when you get into individuals who are non-Christian altogether.
Right.
A Catholic
Yeah.
marrying a Jewish person, or a Buddhist, or a Muslim, because the experience, the worship is so very different that there really isn't a lot of common ground sometimes. If you're going to make this attempt, you really have to have some good conversations. And again, making sure that you're laying out and being honest with expectations. If your spouse is a diehard Protestant, your fiance is a diehard Protestant, and she does not want to have the kids raised Catholic, well, that's going to be an issue, because as a Catholic, we have an obligation. If we're getting married, especially if we're getting married in a Catholic church, we make a promise to raise our children Catholic.
If you believe that this is the fullness of faith as we are called to as Catholics, then don't you want your children to experience the fullness of the sacramental life of the church, which ultimately makes you holy to get to heaven? There's a lot to consider.
Right.
All right. Well, this was hopefully we never have to do this again. But if we are still, you know, we need to anticipate every future February with much more caution than we went into this one. So
maybe we can, yeah, maybe we can, knowing this, maybe we can work a little bit ahead of time, make sure that we have some episodes in the till ready to go, just in case.
If you enjoy this podcast, if you enjoyed this episode, if you like this Reddit style format, like it, subscribe to it, share it with somebody. Hopefully next week we'll be back to normal. So looking forward to it. We'll see you next week.
All right. God bless.